Well, welcome, welcome. I'm so thrilled to see you all, well, virtually online. Welcome to TueNight Presents Number One Daughter. Who said, yes, who said we're the responsible ones? I mean, come on now, Gen X, what? Sponsored by AARP. For those of you who are new to TueNight, and welcome, there's many of you, we are the premier platform and community where Gen X women share our hilarious, messy, and very true stories of midlife. You will get to meet some of these amazing women tonight on the show. First, though, I would love to introduce you to Karen Chong, who is the Vice President of Audience Strategy, Age Inclusion in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at AARP, our sponsor, our wonderful sponsor for tonight's event. Karen, how are you?
Hey there, I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. And happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
So thrilled. So let's begin by talking about why you and AARP wanted to join us for Number One Daughter. What does the theme mean to you?
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to be here. And thank you, Margaret, for being with us on this journey to really bring this conversation out. Because, to me, what's really interesting is the concept of number one daughter, to me, is kind of rooted in kind of an AAPI cultural concept of being number one daughter. Like the eldest daughter is the one that does a lot of things for the family and is both responsible, but also kind of in charge of things. But, really what I find amazing is so many women I know who are not, who are of all different, cultures really take on that role. And I think what's great is, when I think about, Gen X, we've had this conversation, like Gen X, we were kind of raised to be the number one daughter generation, right? Like we were, we're the latchkey kids. We're the ones who just kind of, came and went and did our thing. And, we always joke that we were the ones trusted with like both flames and scissors, and we somehow managed to survive. And for those of us who've made it, we've taken on this role now at this stage of our lives, right? And especially for AARP, we really just want to have this conversation about what it means to be, a grown-ass woman at every life stage. And at this point, we're really being thoughtful and joining together with you and with this great community to have this conversation about what it means to be, women in this space, right? And yes. We're the ones who are, I love your theme of, who said we're the responsible ones? Well, apparently we are the ones. Like we are there's that meme, we're the ones we've been waiting for. I feel like that is very much who we are as Gen X women.
Yes. All right. So based on your experience, what are some of the responsibilities of the number one daughter, would you say?
Oh God, like what isn't a responsibility? Today, I, had a call with my mom about the maintenance team in her building coming to replace her water filter in her refrigerator. I am the one who takes care of, my full family, all of our legal paperwork. I'm the one who set up everyone's estate planning and got all of that taken care of. I'm the one who makes sure, with some of my other colleagues, the other day at the office when something hadn't happened and, we find ourselves at 5 p.m. on a Thursday night getting things figured out for an event that happened today, across the country. Like when you're a number one daughter, you just are the one who just takes charge. I mean, like that is the truth of it, right?
And it's so Gen X, the scrappy DIY kind of vibe that we all have, right? Yeah. Let's just do it. Let's get it done.
Right. So it's kind of put your head down and just focus and just kind of, brute force, right? And we do just get it done. And I think that's part of what is really fascinating for me to be in this conversation with you and the other storytellers tonight is we do just get it done, but we don't often make space for ourselves to really acknowledge that and really just even appreciate the work that we're all doing, Like we were joking the other day, like I know when you're on, some of the activities that you're doing as a caregiver for people in your family, when I see your location from some of your Instagram posts and I'm like, oh, I know what she's doing now.
Billy. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But that's how but I feel like, even with my extended network, that's how we keep tabs on each other so that I can check in and, and say, hey, how are your parents doing? How is this person in your family? How's your dog? We do all of that for each other. Right. And yet, we don't often think about that as being such a part of being a number one daughter. We are the ones who are in charge, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? Like, we take everyone into our circles and we do everything we can for each other. So whether it's work or friends or family, it's a responsibility, but it's also based on true thoughtfulness and love for each other. And I think that is something that we really should kind of, really sit in and really understand that that is what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. So two-part kind of final question. What would you like the women here in our spaces? We've opened up our own spaces. In here, I'm in my friend Susan McPherson's beautiful apartment because my Wi-Fi is terrible. But what would you like? What would you like? What would you like the women in online, in the real and virtual spaces to take away tonight? And what are you looking forward to tonight as well?
Yeah. So what I would love for everyone to take away is a sense of their own power in this dynamic, right? Like we are, whether you're the firstborn or the thirdborn or, daughter-in-law or what have you, like being a number one daughter is a role that we all take on gladly because we want to do this for the people in our lives. And so I hope that we take a moment, and it's a reminder for me too, to kind of sit back and acknowledge the work that we're doing and that it is work, that it is effort, but that it's great. And it's something that we wouldn't have any other way. And so I hope that we kind of acknowledge that for ourselves and for each other. And what I really hope that, I've had a bit of a sneak peek because I've of course been reading a lot of the stories. And for me, it's such an emotional range, but what I really want is for us to be able to kind of break through our little Gen X mold of being, tough and just getting things done and just give ourselves a moment to really share in what it means to be in this space with each other and to be vulnerable and to be open and to just kind of accept that, that this is who we all are and to find both the joy in the work that we do, but then also find community with each other, because really it's a remarkable caregiving journey that we're on. Giving care for each other is something that, we are big believers in. So we're just excited to have everybody here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen. We appreciate everything you've done, and we're so glad to have you as the sponsor for this event. And yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Morgan, for bringing together this amazing event. We couldn't be happier.
Awesome. Bye. All right. See you later. See you soon.
Bye.
So thank you all again for being here. I would love to welcome our host for tonight's virtual house party. She is a comedian and a podcaster and an all-around fabulous human being. Please join me in welcoming Ophira Eisenberg.
Hey! Hello, everybody! Yeah! Oh, yeah! Hi. Oh, great. See? I've set off the alarms. The streets are filled with alarms. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Margaret. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Number One Daughter. Who said we're the responsible ones? And I got to say, there was this little thing that Karen was just talking about that reminded me. I do this thing, too, with my friends where we all kind of look back on our childhood and so much has changed, right? And we go, oh, back when we were kids, there was no organic food. No one asked us about our feelings. We got to play in the dryer. And then we all look at each other and go, and look at us, we're fine. And my new question is, are we fine? Because I am regularly doused in CBD oil under a weighted blanket, my friends. But I'm here to celebrate with you tonight. So I know many of you are joining us virtually. Well, we're all joining each other virtually, but we have some of our storytellers have people in the room. And I see in the chat, some of you have been saying where you're from. I see that we have DC, we have Cleveland, LA, Brooklyn, Minneapolis, I saw, or maybe it was Minnesota. You can give me exact in the chat. Tucson, South Dakota. I want to know where in South Dakota. New Jersey. There's Massachusetts. So keep going. North Carolina. I'll get back because I want to say it all. We're really from all around the country. This is amazing. So to start things off, everybody, I feel like we should meet the storytellers. Shall we meet the storytellers? Because this really is a coast-to-coast house party. So let's bring them on, everybody. All right. First, yeah, we're coming in. I'll tell you where everyone's from. Joining me also from Brooklyn, Margette and I are in Brooklyn. Hello. Hello. How's your side of Brooklyn doing? How's the weather?
Kind of Sounds good. It's very cold.
It's really cold, everybody. I was in Canada yesterday, and Canada was warmer. Just saying. All right. We also have all the way from North Carolina, Omishade. Yeah.
Forgot some competition.
Yeah, this is great. I love it. How are things? I love, by the way, I love the color of your room. I find it very soothing just looking at it.
Thank you.
You're in Durham, right?
I am.
I love Durham. Haven't been there in a while, but I remember it was very friendly.
It's still very friendly.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Your group is so far winning. I'm not saying it's a competition, but so far they're winning. Okay. I would like to say hello to Kathy in Arizona.
Arizona.
And I understand it was your birthday over the weekend, so also happy birthday.
Thank you.
Awesome. I know Arizona is, as per usual, 200 degrees.
No, it's beautiful right now.
I'm
It's
sure.
like in the 50s.
I'm sure it's perfect. I wish I was there. And also, both in Los Angeles, Mimi and Melody. Hello. All right, everyone's groups are amazing. Now the bar is high after seeing everybody. Hello, how's LA?
Cold. Oh, yeah. It's a chilly, 63?
Oh, did you guys have to put on
Don't
long
hate us.
sleeves?
Don't hate us.
Very good. Welcome to all of our storytellers all across the country. Welcome to everybody in our virtual audience. We're so thrilled to have storytelling for you tonight. And so we are going to hear 6 incredible stories as part of tonight's famed evening of storytelling. There's going to be laughs. There might be tears. It's going to be heartfelt. We're going to take you all over the place, and we're going to explore and honor and celebrate what it is to be a number one daughter, like we all are here tonight. So I'm going to hear from you in the chat, so keep that going because I'll reflect on you in between our storytellers. And don't forget to stay tuned until the end of the event because there will be a winner, everybody. That's right. There is a gift box, and it's featuring 10 items from curated women-owned businesses. And there will be a winner that will get this incredible gift box. But on to the main event, the storytelling. All right, my friends, give this person a huge round of applause in your home because that's what we do. We participate like we are at a real show because that really makes these virtual experiences come even more alive. So our first storyteller is Mimi Eisen. She has a 100% winning streak on Wordle. I look up to this person. I certainly do not have that. She is a creative force and a movement motivator behind the blog heymiddleage.com with a goal to build community through the exploration of midlife experiences. She inspires the over 50s to embrace their age and move in their bodies. With Mimi tonight are the women who support her most in her life. So everybody, huge round of applause for Mimi as she reads her story. It took my mom's death to lift the burden of being the responsible one. Mimi Eisen.
I'm in good company with this bunch of badass women. Beyonce, Oprah, Hillary, Taylor Swift. I'm the number one child and the number one daughter in my family, just like them. Birth order, which is not an exact science, but has been researched for decades, shows that firstborns tend to be type A personalities with an intense fear of failure. It kills us to screw up. And that's why we're controlling and approach anything new like it's a chance to hug a cactus. Rule breakers? Hell no. Bossy know-it-alls? Olympic level. Responsible child? 100% made for it. I read a description that explains the oldest child, and it goes like this. An only child who has been dethroned. I get it. I've lived it. Parents serve you like you're a princess until a sibling shows up, and then they snatch the crown off your head and stomp on it. Here's how it happens. When your parents need help, you are the default, and they expect you to set a good example for your siblings, so you get straight A's. You babysit on demand. I mean, I learned early on that if I did these things well, I would reap praise and approval from my parents. It totally worked. And over time, I became a world-class Hermione Granger level bossy know-it-all. I was born in 1963. I'll let you do the math. And I have a younger sister and a brother. I admit I wasn't an especially warm or supportive sibling. I probably resented having grown-up duties when I was a kid, but I was protective. When my sister was 7, she climbed on the upright piano keys to reach her slinky, which was on top of the piano. You remember those? But she was wearing socks, duh. So she slipped and fell. She hit the back of her head on a side table. And I grabbed her and cradled her limp body in my lap while I waited for my parents to return home as blood seeped from the back of her skull and I thought she was going to die. I mean, come on, I did not sign up for this. But I did what was expected of me. And having my favorite white sweater permanently stained with my sister's blood was apparently part of the package. Years ago, in the 90s, I was at a club in San Francisco waiting in line for the bathroom when I overheard a woman in front of me say to her friend, "I don't sip life, I chug it, I guzzle it." So this statement stopped me in my tracks because until that moment, I thought I was living a balls out life, even as a #1 responsible child who was a people-pleasing perfectionist. But I was extremely cautious and risk averse. I said no to anything new that had a whiff of discomfort or failure. Damn it. I was actually a sipper. But my mom, she was a guzzler, always champagne, and she loved her life. A few years ago, she called to tell me she was diagnosed with a rare disease that had no cure. She dropped that bomb and then said, "Don't tell anyone, including my siblings." She didn't want them to worry. But I guess that meant it was okay for me, the #1 child, the #1 daughter, to solely carry that burden. 6 months later, when she was in hospice care at home, she took her last breath. Now, months before her diagnosis, my mom had made a request to go on a trip with my sister and me, just the 3 of us girls, so we could bond and have some quality time together. And she rarely asked for anything, so this trip was important. But we don't live close to each other. So choosing a destination took some negotiating. New Orleans, Montreal, Vancouver, all too far, I said. I'd have to take off too many days from work. Napa, I suggested. My sister and I could fly in, we could drive to the wine country, and as a bonus, my mom could bring her dog, Jean-Pierre. The discussions went on for months, and then she gets this effing disease and her health declines, and then the trip is off the table because I procrastinated. And that's when I became her #1 irresponsible, selfish daughter. After she died, I stayed at her house for weeks while my siblings and I cleared out a lifetime of belongings. And each time I used her shower, I looked at her makeup chair, the one she sat on every day when putting on her lashes and radiant raspberry lipstick. And through my tears and wails, I apologized. I didn't make the trip happen, and I didn't say I was sorry while she was still lucid. And these are my biggest regrets. My sister says I should forgive myself, that I was a good daughter. She said there was probably 0 chance my mom was thinking of the missed trip. And I know she's right, because all my mom wanted at the end was to be out of pain and in her home surrounded by her family. So maybe I wasn't a B- daughter, which would be a disaster in my Asian family. Maybe I deserve an A, because after my mom passed, I managed all the things you do when someone dies, the house, the money, the memorial, because she had planned ahead and had given me, of course, the #1 child, those duties. And now I don't have a mom to be responsible for. But I was actually never responsible for her. That was her job and her job only. I've learned that being the responsible one and having responsibilities are clearly different. When my internet boyfriend, Keanu Reeves, also a number one child, cool, was asked how he confronts aging, he said, with a wonder and a terror. And he's right, because the earth-shaking things that used to matter, well, they don't matter so much when the runway ahead of us is shorter than it is behind us. In middle age, we naturally slough off whatever BS doesn't serve us, like caring about what other people think. And that freedom creates the space for wonder. And the so-called terrors of growing older, that BS doesn't serve us either. I mean, whenever I face stuff that makes me feel bad about growing older, I just remember that it's all ageist crap. Social constructs to get middle-agers to buy into anti-aging, impossible. And the untrue belief that everything's downhill after youth. Now, I'm not going to pretend that life isn't going to pull on the one string that unravels the entire sweater. But when that happens, I'm using my hard-won superpowers. Bend and flex when life comes at you. Gray hair, here for it. Shrinking half an inch, unnoticeable. Vintage vagina, manageable. Losing a parent, a calamity. But we survive. The cliches of life are real. Life is short and you do only live once, and none of us is entitled to time. I repeat, none of us is entitled to time. So I'm going to face my fears and get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm going to do some messy shit and lean into being number one and responsible for me so I can start guzzling. Cheers.
Oh my goodness, that was amazing. Yes. And I have to admit, I think I'm reflective, Mimi, of everyone who listened to your story, and some people put it in the chat. Beautiful. And so some of your lines, I mean, I think I have this right, that you said life, the way that life pulls on that one thread that holds the whole sweater together. So many beautiful lines. And I had to grab a Kleenex because I teared up because it was so gorgeous. And you just mentioned Slinky, and it brought me back. I have to say, I have a 7-year-old son, and during the pandemic, he's now 7. During the pandemic, I bought him a Slinky as a toy. And I live in Brooklyn in a small apartment. And then I was like, oh, great. Now I need to buy stairs. So, yeah, it's fine. It's really fun to just do this with it. But again, oh, my goodness, starting this storytelling event with so much meaning and beauty, and just what a way to start. Mimi Eisen, everybody. All right. We are continuing to our next storyteller. Our second storyteller is Omi Sade Bernie Scott. She is the founder of Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause. Omi, I love the way that she describes herself. Omi describes herself as a Southern girl with an urban scent, the daughter of sweet and salt water. Omi is a grounded fire that birthed water and air, her 2 sons, Che and Taj. She is a storyteller whose hands were made to hold on to liberation for people pushed to the margins of the systems of oppression and generational trauma. And with her tonight in her room are her soulmates, her kindred spirits, her co-conspirators, who she trusts to share her most authentic self with, because together they are their most authentic selves together. So please welcome Omi Sade as she shares her story, The Moment I Found Out I Wasn't My Mother's Firstborn, a tale of ancestral healing. Omi Sade.
I have lived the first 53 years of my life invested in the narrative that I was my mother's firstborn child, her firstborn daughter, in fact. I had been raised on the bittersweet love story of my parents. I come from a family of storytellers, and the lore that lives inside of my family about how my parents met at a dance at the Armory. He was there with his soon-to-be ex-girlfriend. She was there with her cousin, who apparently encouraged her to talk to that handsome Willie George McConnor. The love story that followed was epic. My aunts would talk about how quickly they fell in love, married, and how badly they wanted babies together. In this story that had been repeated so many times throughout my childhood, it was my father, William George McConnor, the eldest son of Annie and Jacob McConnor's brood of 6 children, who saw my mother as his soft place to land, his redemption song. 13 years my mother's senior, my father was born and raised in Eastern North Carolina, where my mother was raised. And we can trace our family back 7 generations. Short in stature, big in personality and presence, my father was a looker with pecan brown skin. He had a legendary temper and a reputation for being a straight shooter and a ladies' man. As soon as he was old enough to leave school, he did just that. He got a job as a brick mason and made enough money to buy a one-way ticket to Brooklyn, leaving North Carolina behind. There he would marry and father 2 girls, Mary Ann and Michelle, my older sisters. My mother, on the other hand, was the middle child of Irma and John Kinsey. Her childhood was marked with poverty and unexpected death, first with the passing of her older brother Owen, just a toddler, from pneumonia, and then her father, who worked tirelessly as a tenant farmer from a burst appendix. He was in his 30s. This left my grandmother, who had contracted polio as a child and moved in the world labeled as lame, to figure out how to care for my mom, just 4 years old, and her baby brother, my Uncle Coley. They were often separated from one another as they moved around the small rural communities of Eastern North Carolina between kith and kin for 2 years during the Great Depression. Eventually, my mother would be taken in by my grandmother's sister, our great aunt Betty, and who was a teacher, and her husband. They would raise her until she left home in 1950 to attend Bennett College for Women in Greensboro, North Carolina. Mommy was taller than average, with warm, dark brown skin, rail thin, full-chested, with an overbite inherited by all of her progeny. She wore glasses. My Uncle Coley relentlessly teased her when they saw each other, calling her big nose and snake toes. She never felt pretty, but she was smart, a great orator, and she knew what she wanted to do with her life. She wanted to be a registered nurse. At Bennett College, one of 2 historically Black colleges and universities in this country for Black women, she could make that happen. 12 years after becoming a nurse, Mary Ella was there that night at the Armory where she and Willie George first started their dance together. In the 4 years that my parents were married, they experienced 2 pregnancy losses, my birth, my father's cancer diagnosis, and the birth of my younger sister, Georgette, 3 months after our father passed away. 7 years after her first marriage, she married our stepfather, Charlie, in the living room of his house in Washington, D.C. My mother and stepdad were old high school friends, him with 2 teenage boys, and her, a young widow with 2 girls. Charlie would become our daddy, legally adopting us, and Fred and Charlie Jr., our big brothers. To me, my large Black Southern blended family and friends who knew her, Mommy was pretty damn amazing. When I was a kid, I was hella active, always running, jumping, playing, whatever. My sister and I took tap, ballet, and jazz dance classes. Saturday mornings were for high buns and top-knot Afro puffs. There were multi-hued little Black girls in pink leotards, shiny Black tap shoes, or Black or pink ballet shoes. We danced to Chaka Khan, Louis Armstrong, and The Wiz. I loved all of these moments, and you would think that being this active would help me be more graceful, but it didn't. I was clumsy as hell. If it was possible to get poked in the eye, I did. If there was a way for me to spring a finger, knock a permanent tooth loose, or break my foot, I found that way, over and over again. My mother, the nurse, would say, "Billy, if you live to be 16, you will live forever." That encouraged me to watch my steps, slow down, and be careful. And Lord knows I have tried. And I also know I will not live forever. I have lived 20,075 days. My mother lived 24,820 days. People who follow me on social media know how much I love my mom. They also know that hers was the first death that I would bear witness to when I was 31. This was a role that I took very seriously as her dutiful firstborn daughter. It's the little things you always seem to remember. Her laugh that came from deep inside her belly, or her perfume. White Shoulders or Charlie perfume was always present in our home. Gina Tay was a close third. The way that she would hum a random tune while scratching my scalp or cooking something so simple like a pot of pinto beans. That hum and that power in her dark brown fingers created magic that seemed to linger. I miss her laugh. That hum, I miss her. In the first winter of the pandemic, a family relative that I didn't know reached out to us on social media. I found you on Ancestry.com. I think your mother was married to my grandfather. Is your grandfather's name William or Charlie? No, Roscoe. Wait, who the hell is Roscoe? Unbidden by this new piece of information of my mother's story that had made its way to me through a newly found eldest nephew, Terrence, her eldest grandchild. He came to tell us the story of how my mother had been in an abusive marriage in her early 20s. Roscoe was her first husband. That marriage had taken place 12 years before she connected with our father and began walking a new path where she felt safe and loved. Before all of that, my mother was married to a man who mentally and physically tormented and isolated her. My heart began to race. My face got hot as I listened to my nephew tell my mother's story. I thought I knew all her stories. I had committed them to memory almost like an act of fealty to her legacy, which I have shared with my own children. To learn of her first marriage and the deep loss experienced as a result of that relationship flooded my body with sadness and anger, and my mind with questions that will never fully be answered. She had met him during her post-grad program at L. Richardson Hospital, the colored hospital in Greensboro, North Carolina, which enrolled Bennett students after they completed their first 2 years of general studies. My mother married Roscoe 2 months before her 21st birthday. They moved to New Jersey after she completed her nursing program. Her first marriage had also made her something she had not been before, a mom. It breaks my heart that she was separated from her children, my eldest brother, Michael, and my sister, Patrice, the first baby she held in her body that she would have to leave behind to save her own life, whom she would never see again on this side of the veil. They too would pass away before their story was revealed to me by little green leaves on the Ancestry.com website. Her story, their story, has opened a portal to a new journey of reunification and healing for our family, and is allowing me to see my mother again in a whole different way. Her story, filtered through the years of someone else's voice, reminds you that you don't always see the harm or trauma a person has gone through or is walking with. It makes me angry to know that my mother suffered at the hands of a violent person. But I also feel joy and so much love and gratitude for the love that she still could access from my sister, me, and our siblings who would come to call her mom and all her grandbabies. I'm also curious if she could access that same love for herself. There is a belief that grief is carried somatically in our lungs. So it is no surprise that it is where sarcoidosis took hold of her breath at the end of her life. I am so grateful that grief did not destroy her beautiful heart. I'm also grateful to be the keeper of stories. It's an honor to hold sacred space as people allow whole worlds to fall out of their mouths into my hands. Stories wrapped in love, grief, anger, humor, and joy. Truth smoothed out or raw, jagged, or an offering, a balm that heals. I'm sitting here with a new part of my mother's story in my hands. It's new to me and old at the same time, like chipped fine china in a consignment shop. My mother was a person with a complex story of grief and trauma that has found a way to live on past her physical presence of 68 years of life on this planet. Like coordinates of a supernova signature that no longer exists in this dimension, we know the story is real. We have been left to decipher the truth of her journey on our own. I'm proud to say that I'm Mary's daughter, and I'm honored to be the keeper of her story.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I am. I think I speak for all of us when I say we are so lucky, Omishade, that you are the keeper of that story, and I know that you are a number one daughter in every sense of the word. Bringing that story to this show tonight and this sharing. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful and heartbreaking. And I have to say that I was a clumsy dancer too. When you just made that note about how you took these classes and yet you were a clumsy dancer, I was like, that was me. Just so powerful. And, just some of the beautiful writing and some of the little things sprinkled throughout your story as soon as you said, Ginate, the perfume. Everyone in the chat was like, I remember that. And Charlie, someone put as well, Charlie. Thank you so much. This is already an incredibly powerful storytelling show. And thank you again for the virtual audience for being so great in the chat. You are really bringing this virtual space alive. So let's continue to our third storyteller. Keep this wonderful storytelling night going. Our third storyteller is Kathy Cano Murillo, known as the Craft Chica. Kathy launched Crafty Chica in 2001 as a way to bring Latino-centric crafts to mainstream audiences. She is a creativepreneur on a mission to spread positivity and self-empowerment through speaking, writing, crafting, and multiple product lines and collaborations with national brands. Kathy is a fourth-generation maker and a third-generation Mexichica from Phoenix, Arizona. And she shares her story tonight entitled, I Made Christmas Tamales for My Dad. He knew they were really for me. Take it away, Kathy.
There I was in a sketchy part of town in a grocery store aisle, poking my finger into various bags of masa. My other hand gripped my phone as my dad coached me how to choose the best ingredients. Got everything, he said? Okay, hurry and get out of there. It's not safe. After paying for these precious goods, I booked it to my silver 4Runner outside, avoiding eye contact with the late night zombies who wandered the parking lot under the December moonlight. I took this midnight hour risk because I knew I needed to save our Christmas tradition. You see, after almost 50 years of my dad handcrafting 30 dozen tamales every holiday season, he couldn't do it that year due to cancer treatment and an emergency leg amputation. With all that going on, you know what my dad was worried about in his hospital room? The holiday tamales. This will be the first year I don't make them, he said somberly. My dad was the rock star tamale maker. He was even featured in Better Homes and Gardens magazine one time. Despite the labor-intensive production stress, he took pride in making and sharing these creations. I felt his disappointed spirit, and I knew what I had to do. I needed to save the day. This reflexive heroism is just part of being the firstborn daughter and the middle child in my family. No one put this expectation upon me. I carried it for myself. And at that moment in time, I needed to come through. I hopped up on my chair by his bedside. Dad, I'll make the tamales this year. I never felt more heroic in my whole life. I'd be the one to save the chili season by nobly picking up where my dad left off. He chuckled. Kathy, the last time you helped, a chili seed went up your nose and you walked off the job. Well, I chose to ignore that literally painful memory, and I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen from my purse to make the shopping list. Okay, here's what we'll do, I explained confidently. I will be your hands. You can guide me through the speakerphone. I already have the recipe. I'll go buy the ingredients right now before Food City closes. I'll cook the meat and the chili tonight. And tomorrow, easy, you can guide me through mixing the masa. We can do this together, Dad. Trust me. He smiled warmly, which I took as an enthusiastic, let's do this. We went through with my plan and stayed on the phone for hours as I painstakingly completed each step. We shared stories, we laughed, we created chaos together that night until the very last tamal was steamed to perfection, and I knew it was perfect. On Christmas Day, I proudly served 24 of our collaborative tamales in my dad's rehab hospital room to the family. He took a bite and he served me a 2 thumbs up expression with his eyes. These savory treats could have been the worst he ever tasted, but he made me feel like I could go on to win a culinary competition, although he did give me a few pointers for the next batch. Now that I look back on this night, I realize he didn't agree to my plan in order to save the Christmas tamales. He aimed to save my emotions. We both knew I sucked at cooking, but his fatherly intuition recognized I needed to make this connection with him. The unspoken conversation was that our family dynamic would soon be forever changed. We didn't know to what extent yet. We both needed one more memory that included his coaching. I needed one more memory of me making him proud and the 2 of us laughing together. He passed the following July, and the next Christmas, I resurrected his delicious red chili sauce. I bottled it in jars. I made a label with his picture, and I passed it out to my family members, creating a whole new holiday tradition that honored my dad's. And by the way, my family didn't eat the tamales, but my dad did, and that's what counts.
Kathy, everybody! That was so amazing. I love that story. And again, funny and heartbreaking. And I just have to say, I want to be Kathy's friend. Your energy and the way you come through this screen is just, I mean, delightful is the word that comes to mind. And that's just one of many. Love the story. And I know exactly. I feel like everybody in this room did too. The feeling of doing something you're not good at because you want to, you said my cooking sucks, and just the way you said it was so perfect. It was just to try to hang on to a moment. I just thought that was so beautiful. All right, my friends, we have a couple more storytellers for you. Our 4th storyteller is Melanie Godfred. She is a poet and author, also known as the self-love philosopher, who is passionate about authenticity and human connection. Melody is a mother of 3, her twins, Stella and Violet, who are 10, and Teddy, who is 4.5. From poetry exploring what it means to love yourself, to wet wipes and other mundane yet sacred aspects of motherhood, Melody has written it all. And tonight she is joining us from her parents' home, which is not only where she grew up, where she met her husband, but it's also where she got married. Just as she pointed out, not all in the same day. She is with her family and chosen family, collected over many years and many phases of life, who she is very grateful for. Please welcome Melody as she shares her story entitled Being a Good Daughter, Putting Myself First. Melanie.
Hi, everyone. The call came from out of the country. Worried, I answered on the first ring. Is everything okay? It was my parents. Dad wanted to get your opinion on something. I let out a deep breath. There is nothing to worry about, at least not anymore. For the longest time, I carried with great weight the responsibility of being the arbiter of all things in my family. I distinctly remember my parents making me my youngest brother's de facto 3rd parent when I myself was a child. Should he face a consequence for something he did? Was he prepared for an upcoming exam? The answer was always the same. Ask Melody. You can imagine what this did to my relationship with him. 15 years later, I'm still trying to extricate myself from his perception of me as an overbearing authority figure. I don't blame my parents for leaning on me. They were practically children themselves when they escaped Iran with infant me in their arms so that I could have a future. We did, in fact, grow up together. We learned English. We navigated the duality of having two distinct communities and identities, one Persian, one American. We lived the American dream of being the best. My dad pursuing entrepreneurship, my mom charitable fundraising, and me getting into one of the best private schools in the country. And when my first brother was born 7 years after me, and then the next one 5 years after that, we raised them together. Even when my parents didn't ask me to step in, I usually did anyway, as though being in the eye of a storm would protect me from the swirling chaos around me. Whether navigating conflicts with family members or making major business and life decisions, my parents consulted with me. Addressing their needs always felt more urgent than exploring my own. And the truth is, I loved it. So much of my self-worth was wrapped up in my intellect, accomplishments, and being deemed wise and capable, and being needed and praised. While my parents were busy making a life for us in a foreign world, I was busy doing what was within my power, being the best daughter, a star student, a pianist, university student, president, straight A's, all of it. My parents had been through enough. If I could relieve any pain or worry and instead give them a reason to be proud, I would. Making safe, respectable choices always triumphed over daring to be joyful. Even though I spent my childhood writing music and poetry, when it came time to choosing a major in college, I took my dad's suggestion and double majored in business, in addition to music, because it was the safe thing to do. When I graduated and I didn't have a job lined up in the music business like I dreamed of, all it took was a gentle nudge from my mom for me to go to law school. I'm profoundly grateful that my parents gave me these opportunities and so many more. I just didn't have the self-awareness at the time to know what I was choosing and why. Making them happy was enough. The tendency towards self-sacrifice, doing the right thing, succumbing to the siren song of martyrdom, this pattern, of course, didn't start with me or my mom or her mom. It's so deeply embedded in our DNA as Persian women to give rather than to receive that it feels as natural as breathing, which is ironic since most of the time we are holding our breath. As we sacrifice, we meddle, we worry, we carry so much that simply isn't ours. But then I became a mother at 30 to not one, but two daughters at once, and I reached a breaking point. The pressure of keeping premature twins alive, all while running my business, managing our home, and still being inextricably linked to my parents and my brothers every up and down was too much. I wasn't a priority in my own life, and as a result, I was anxious, sad, and developed a thyroid condition. So I started to wonder, will my cultural inheritance of being a good, dependable daughter become my legacy, or will I give my daughter something more? I discovered two words and they became my North Star: self-love. Instead of achievement, I chose authenticity. Instead of hurling myself towards conflict, I protected my peace. Instead of pleasing others, I finally learned how to please myself. I chose the families, values, and community I was creating with my husband instead of what I was born into. Every time I made a decision, not from a place of obligation or habit, but instead from an intention and love, I felt and witnessed myself healing from skin to soul. Whereas I started my career as an attorney and an entrepreneur, and now I spend my days writing poetry or giving speeches about the power of self-love. You can find my poetry books in bookstores all around the world, which is one of the childhood dreams I thought I had forever deferred. Whereas before I paid no attention to my physical, emotional, or psychological needs, now I hold those needs sacred. I move my body, I'm mindful of what I eat, I go to therapy, I talk about my feelings. I see myself as a garden I have the privilege of tending to. I even drink water. Recently, I turned 40, and as I get older, I no longer see my family as a place to shrink myself under the weight of what's expected, but rather a place to love myself and share my truest, most abundant self. Because being a good daughter does not have to come at the expense of my authenticity or wholeness. This is the legacy I want to leave my children. And this tremendous shift in me has reverberated not just down into my kids, but also up towards my parents. My mom is also shedding her dutiful skin so she can inhabit a lighter, more vibrant and present life experience. My hope is soon my dad will do the same. I still and always will answer my parents' calls on the first ring, and I'll do whatever I can to support them. But I have stopped embodying struggles that aren't mine or defining my worth based on saving the day. Instead, I use everything I've learned on my own self-love journey to teach my parents to feel their feelings and express their true selves and needs, because they deserve to experience the freedom that comes from being authentic instead of good too. And so did you.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. I'm so inspired. Melody, everybody, a incredible personal story, but also someone just put it, that's exactly what I needed too. It's exactly what I needed. And I'm going to think about this one thing you said for a long time, which is the the difference emotionally between breathing and holding your breath. So powerful. Thank you so much, Melody. All right, my friends. Wow. Yes, that's right. Choose yourself. Choose ourselves. Our fifth storyteller. Well, our fifth storyteller actually is the founder of this jam. That's right, everybody. Margaret Detweiler is our next storyteller. She started TueNight back in 2013 when she was 45 years old and realized that she felt kind of young and old at the same time and thought that the narrative around women in midlife, and especially Gen X women, needed to change. And the best way to do that, of course, is to take it on yourself and pursue it through storytelling. I love it. Margaret is passionate about supporting women's stories, writing, art, music. She was even once a rock critic. Did you know that? For 6 glorious months. And she was in a band, and for 6 glorious months, she was in a band called Rockula. We need footage. She's joining us tonight from Susan McPherson's living room, one of her dearest friends who also wrote a book called The Lost Art of Connecting. So couldn't be a better person to host a bunch of hardcore two-nighters, and Margaret's closest friends are with her, some of whom she hasn't seen in a long time. So she joins us now with her story entitled, Who Made Me the Boss? I'm going to say this properly. Who made me the boss exactly? Take it away, Margaret.
That was perfect. Thank you so much. All right. You're in charge. Friday night, 1979. I'm 11 years old, sitting on stools with my sister and brother in front of the tiny kitchen TV, flipping the knob between Fantasy Island and One Day at a Time. My parents give us each quick hugs, smelling of Hermes perfume, a pregame martini, and scratchy tweed as they breeze off to the next door neighbor's cocktail party, leaving me with a phone number for any emergencies and this look in the eye directive. Now, you're in charge of your brother and sister, okay? I remember feeling elated with my new important designation, but also mildly terrified. I looked at my little sister who was holding her brand new guinea pig Frisky and sticking her tongue out at me in rebellion. This was the first time my parents had left us on our own, and they naturally needed a point person. That was me. Nowadays, we might pause or cringe at leaving a preteen in charge, but this was how things were back in my generation. I know I don't need to tell all of you this. We Gen Xers know. We were latchkey kids. We fended for ourselves. We rode our bikes in the dark. We invented our own fun, and yes, we survived. However, it must be said, leaving an 11-year-old to monitor her 8-year-old sister and 6-year-old brother did result in some pretty creative management skills. Let's make pancakes! We fired up the stove, spilled flour and batter everywhere, and delighted in the maple syrupy goodness. And while I reveled in my newfound power, I also knew I would take the heat for anything that went wrong. As time went on, I was often given this in charge designation. Part of me was a bit resentful. Part of me was a little proud. I liked being the boss, but it also meant a hellish resentment from my younger reports, who rather than listen to me preferred to throw Dansko clogs out the window or cut open Stretch Armstrong to see what was inside. Red jelly. Being the responsible one often meant I couldn't be the fun one. And sometimes I rejected the assignment and became the over-the-top irrational one, throwing a Dansko clog myself. As an adult, I learned that life can be glorious on the passenger side, but something about it feels innately wrong. In a group of people, I'm that annoying person from the Progressive insurance commercial who feels the need to yell, "Okay, people, let's form a single line." And when walking down the street with a bunch of friends, I find myself pulling to the front. Sometimes I've stopped to wonder, why do I always do this? Is this something I've been conditioned to do? What's wrong with, excuse me, hold on. One sec. What's wrong with letting someone else lead? Oh, everything is wrong with that. And I move on to the front of the group. Was there something about being the oldest and being told I'm in charge that led to a lifetime of finding myself in that role? As a little kid, I would organize my siblings, or boss them, depending on who you ask, into tasks of my own desire, performing highly improvised plays in our attic or commandeering my sister to do aerial disco moves. As an adult, I continue to feel this gravitational pull. There's a certain comfort in corralling, but is it more nurture than nature? At the newspaper where I worked in the 90s, I battled my heart, which wanted to stay a music critic and explore life as a writer, and the part of my brain that said, no, manage this shit, be the managing editor. You, ma'am, are in charge. I enjoyed becoming the managing editor, having a seat with the publisher, the editor-in-chief, and the news editor, and being the only woman in the leadership crew. Plus, when you're the boss, you get to discover talent, hire them, give them just the right task, and lead them to make something cool. And while you probably don't say out loud, hey, I made all of this happen, you know, and maybe your boss knows, and way back when, you probably told your parents who were really proud of you. For the last 20 years, I've lived in New York City, and when I moved here from Philadelphia, it was like finding myself, my identity. Weird is wonderful. Sidewalks and subways are full of stories and smells, and everyone here is kind of bossy. I was hired to lead a team of 25 editors at AOL's Digital City. And there's like one here, actually. It's like, oh, and good Lord, was I over my head. But my boss pulled me aside one day to reassure me that I was a natural manager. It made me smile and also wince. Was I headed down the wrong path? What about my intention to become a writer? Tombstone, Margaret, beloved daughter, natural manager. I did honestly enjoy the work. I just wondered if I was falling back on what came easily to avoid a greater reward in writing, which for me is so much harder and scarier. After several other management positions, I launched 2 businesses of my own, including this one. True bossdom can be lonely, but by and large, it's good. It works, it's comfortable. I guess I was born for it. Fast forward to 2022. My siblings run their own businesses and families, and they certainly don't need me telling them what to do. But my parents just might. My mom is now 84 and has Parkinson's. My 89-year-old dad's knees have almost fully given out, to the point he struggles to walk. Only recently have either of them agreed to use a cane and a walker, stubborn old goats. They live in a small carriage house in the leafy neighborhood where I grew up in Philadelphia, in a house adjacent to my brother's place. A few weekends ago, I went to visit. We watched 3 episodes of The Crown together. I helped them with some computer tasks, took the trash out, assisted them as they walked, folded laundry, and made a favorite family breakfast we've been eating since I can remember. protein pancakes. I don't know where we got that one. I haven't driven in years because I'm a New Yorker, so I walk to get them their favorite bread. Both mom and dad are still incredibly sharp-minded, witty, and engaged. Their multi-degree minds are full of details and information. They're actually still working part-time and volunteering. But occasionally they leave the stove on, or they fall and they don't tell us, or they accidentally order multiples of the same item on Amazon, which I think we all do that actually. We gave them both Apple Watches earlier this year, which have fall detection since they don't want to worry us, which works as long as they keep their watches charged. It doesn't always happen. But we need to do more. They need more. They don't even know they need more, but we, their kids, can see it. My siblings and I have started the tireless and sometimes frustrating work to look for supportive care for my parents. Someone else to drive to appointments, help them with the household chores, even personal things like toenail trimming. Fun fact, I've learned since interviewing caregivers, this is not something a regular home aide will do. Who knew? You gather pretty quickly that someone needs to actually manage the caregiver. If they don't show up, if they don't do what's expected. My sister-in-law on my husband's side visits her dad every single day. He's in assisted living. And in part, it's to make everyone aware that someone is watching and someone cares. I'm not sure how we will manage this going forward. Right now, it's an everyone pitch in kind of vibe. But I feel this pull back to my hometown to care for my parents, to now be in charge of them. It's tough. And I would argue sometimes hardest for the eldest or the number one daughter. You feel in your bones this is what you've been prepared for your whole life. But you also have to be mindful of caring for yourself and letting others step in as well, finding that happy medium between self-care and obligation. Relinquishing control is not something easily done in my family. Maybe all of us Detweilers are just bossy. But now having my parents actually need me has reignited the question about how am I meant to be in charge? There's no 11-year-old sense of, yay, pancakes. It feels odd to parent the parents, uneasy, and definitely a little scary. In helping my parents find a comfortable, secure final life stage, I'd like to think in all the confusion and change and them making peace with being slightly less in charge, that they know they'll be okay. They're the ones who first threw me into the deep end, having faith I would rise to the challenge. But back to that first time my parents left me with my siblings in 1979. As we watched Ricardo Montalban and Hervé Villachez point to the sky, my sister went to check on Frisky, the guinea pig. Frisky, who we all thought was a boy, as we had been told by the pet store owner, turned out to be not a portly gentleman, but a pregnant lady, and had started popping out these squirmy little red beings. No! My sister screamed. I somehow found the scrap of paper with the number that my parents had left. I used a rotary phone and called the place where my parents were partying. Mom, Dad, Frisky is having babies. That's not possible, they responded. But they rushed home, and when they did, they arrived to meet the new additions to our family, Munchkin, Peanut, and Rocky. We already named them. I don't remember exactly what was said to me, but I remember the feeling that I had done something good, something responsible. Perhaps at 11, as an accidental guinea pig doula, I was more ready than I realized. Now in my 50s, faced with the growing realization that I may be in charge in a new way, I'm back where I started, terrified at the choices ahead, but ready to take on the challenge. Thank you.
Amazing. So great. Oh my goodness. So amazing. And so many people, as you might see, Margaret, in the chat, related to so much of what you're going through. And I join them in thanking you about talking of what it's like to deal with aging parents and what it's a whole different thing, and how you have to be mindful and present and put together things in a whole different way. So, and oh my God, Frisky the guinea pig, we were not allowed any rodents, as my mother would say, no rodents. So I would have tried to have taken home little Rocky. All right, everybody. Our sixth and final storyteller is me, as it turns out. Hi. I guess I will introduce myself. I am a comedian and writer and storyteller. I have a podcast, a brand new podcast called Parenting is a Joke, where I talk to other stand-up comic parents about what it's like to mix their career with being a parent. And I'm in my Brooklyn apartment right now. My my son is basically on the other side of this wall. I have a 7-year-old son who is going to be going to sleep shortly. And my story tonight is about my mom, and it's called Taking the Wheel on My Mom's Care. So after my mom had surgery to implant a pacemaker, all of my older siblings, as I'm the youngest of 6, came together and started talking about how we were going to take turns to take care of her, because she wasn't supposed to do anything for 6 weeks after the surgery. She wasn't supposed to do any house cleaning or drive, but especially she was not supposed to be under any stress for 6 weeks. Now, I got to say, taking care of my mother is no small task. This is a woman who never sits down. Every meal is made from scratch. She has an incredible garden that needs to be tended. She didn't believe in ever using the dryer. She liked her clothes hung out on the line. She said they smelled better and dried better. Okay? She is like a homesteader living in suburban Canada. So I was waiting for my call, but initially, my older brother and my sister did not call me. They did not call me to schedule my week to take care of our mom. Why? Because I am the youngest. I am the youngest, and it doesn't matter how many mortgage payments I make or jars of anti-wrinkle cream I buy. I am the baby, incapable of taking care of anyone else because I'm barely capable of taking care of myself. And I was like, oh my goodness, no, I'm an adult. I wanted to prove to them. So I called my brother and I told him that I wanted to help. I wanted to be there for my mother. And it was time for me to show my family that I was a fully realized human being and full-sized adult. I was reliable. When I saw my mom, she looked smaller. She looked frail. I hugged her. She told me not to squeeze too hard because it hurt. And I started the task of making her dinner to her liking, which was soup and a salad and an entree and a vegetable side, all, homemade. She sat there watching me, criticizing me, saying things like, oh, you're going to use that pot? Okay. And I knew it wasn't because she didn't like what I was doing. I knew it was because she was frustrated that she couldn't do anything herself. And let me tell you, trying to be the best daughter in that moment was not easy at all. But when I finally served the meal, she looked at it pretty skeptically and then took a bite and exclaimed, "My youngest baby, you made it a great meal for your mother." And I thought, this is a start, right? I mean, she hugged me, even though it hurt, I think, and I just basked in her approval. The following day, I woke up and I thought, since I'm on a roll of conquering, I am going to go to the gym. Every single time I travel, I pack gym clothes, and I thought this time I'm going to finally use them. So I thought it'd be a good little break too. Now, the closest gym was about 3 miles away, so I asked if I could borrow my mother's car, her new car. It was a silver Honda SUV. It was a gift that my mother bought herself once all of her kids were out of the house, and it meant a lot to her. So she reluctantly handed me the keys and said, "Don't be too long." I walked to the garage just reveling in the fact that I was doing a great job. Okay, I was proving that I was helpful and I could be there for my mother. And I slipped behind that wheel more confident than ever. And I was just thinking about how great I was as I was backing out of that tight garage. But my self-congratulatory thoughts were kind of interrupted by a loud crack, followed by something that sounded like crunching metal. So I hit the brake and I glanced out the window, and oh my God, I had come too close to the side of the garage and I had completely cracked off the driver's side mirror. So naturally, in a state of delusion, I just put the car back into drive and went forward, to reverse time. But that didn't do anything. And the dread just started to drip down my body, because not only was this terrible, my mother was going to freak out. And the doctor said she wasn't supposed to be under any stress. And I'd ruined everything. So I drove off. I drove to the gym. I didn't know what to do. I was thinking maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I can glue it back on and then paint the scratches with silver nail polish. But when I got to the gym parking lot and looked at it, oh my God, it was completely ridiculous. The mirror was hanging off the door by little wires. There was a lot of paint missing. There was a lot of scratches on both the mirror and the door and a bit of a dent. And I didn't know what to do. So I went into the gym and I hopped on the treadmill. It was kind of a perfect metaphor because I wanted to run away, but I wasn't going anywhere. So as I sprinted, I was just going through scenarios. I was like, okay, maybe I could say it was a hit and run, and I just noticed it when I came out of the gym. Or maybe I could take the money out of my ATM and say that this guy smashed it, but he didn't want me to file a report with the police, so he just gave me some cash to get it fixed. But you know what? As I'm thinking about these different possibilities, I'm like, they sound familiar. And then it dawned on me that I had used these lies before as a teenager to cover up of other little dents and dings that I had inflicted on her old car when I was learning to drive, because I didn't want to get in trouble. I had used up all of my lies. So there was only one way to get out of this mess. Tell the truth and just own up to it. And I hoped that when she heard it, that pacemaker would kick in. So I rehearsed my speech over and over and over on the drive home. But when I saw my mom, my eyes just filled with tears. And I just went, I did a bad thing to your car. And her eyes widened and just caught on fire. And I told her what happened. And I just apologized. And she nodded, full of parental disappointment, and said to no one in particular, well, what are you going to do? I knew that I'd reverted back to child status in her mind. Although in mine, owning up to the truth in this moment was really the most adult thing I had ever done in our relationship. The next day, I found a body shop that could finish the work in a couple of days for $400, which was out of my budget, but my mother insisted we split it. And when it was all fixed and done and parked back in the garage, I apologized to my mom again and just said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wish I could be better. And she said, I forgive you. You never have to think about it again. We will never talk about it again. And let's agree on one thing. Let's never tell your older brother, because he won't let you live this down. Even when I was taking care of my mom, she always managed to take care of me. Thank you.
Oh my God. That was so beautiful. That was so funny. I should have heard everyone here were just like laughing.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, peoples. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you, Ophira, for being our lovely host this evening and telling such a story.
Thank you, Margaret. I think I speak for everyone here that this was, I knew it was going to be great, but it was even beyond. And I feel so filled up. And, I love how storytelling is such an intimate kind of thing. It brings us all together. So thank you. Thank you for everyone being such a great audience and incredible storytellers. Incredible.
Awesome. Big round of applause. All right.
Hey, so we have a prize to give away, right?
You. Yes.
Okay. So Yeah, so before we go, I mentioned at the beginning that there is this incredible curated box that has 10 items from women-owned businesses from across the country, and the winner is oh wait, let's do this. It is Iris Gold.
Yay!
Iris Gold, you are the winner. Congratulations. Congratulations to everyone because, we're all here together tonight. And I feel like that is something we should celebrate. Margaret, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled. And this was just, all of the storytellers were fantastic. I just want to thank everyone who joined us tonight and for chiming in the chat and sharing your stories. Thank you to AARP for this special night. Wouldn't be possible without you. And Karen Chong, thank you so much. If you'd like to learn more about TueNight, you can find us at TueNight.com. And also our community is on TueNight.substack.com. And I think Jackie's putting it in the chat. And we're thrilled that you're now part of our community. Even if you didn't know, you're now part of our community. And just thank you to all of you for sharing your truth with us. I mean, it takes guts. I was nervous. So I know what it feels like after doing this so many times, and it takes courage, and I really appreciate it. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, and I think we want to bring everybody back at this point, right?
Yeah.
A little wave off, little, I'm here. You got your pom-pom, with these blue pom-poms. Yes.
There we go.
All right. Shade, Melody, Kathy, Mimi, Ophira. Have a wonderful holiday, everybody, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.
I would turn it off if I knew how.